Hey, you dorks, this is Gunnar Hansen, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you are listening to The Dorkening.
Hi, I'm Brian Johnson, and although you probably accidentally stumbled across it and have no idea why you're watching it, you are in fact watching The Dorkening.
Hello, this is Tom Kenny, voice actor, the voice of the Ice King on Adventure Time, and SpongeBob SquarePants. Ah, meow. Oh, Gary the Snail, too. Hey, guess what you're filling your eye holes and ear holes with? The Dorkening! Oh, I love the Dorkening. Very popular in Ooh, and Bikini Bottom.
Hi, I'm Lou Ferrigno. You're watching The Dorkening. And you know what? You don't like me when I get angry, so don't get me angry. You better keep watching The Dorkening.
Hey guys, this is Felissa Rose, and you're watching The Dorkening.
Hey guys, it's Courtney Palm. We're shooting Death House, and you're watching The Dorkening.
This is Anthony Michael Hall, and you're watching The Dorkening. Stay tuned, my friend's going to show you what entertainment's all about, baby.
The Dorkening.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Rise and shine, my sinners. When Father Evil starts his day, he gets a little deadly. Deadly Grounds coffee has the richest, smoothest flavor you'll find anywhere. It's sinfully delicious. Once you go deadly, you never go back. Order yours at getdeadly.com. Coffee's so good, it's scary.
Hey, welcome to another awesome episode of Creator Studio, and with us as always, Patsy. How's it going, my friend?
Doing all right. Been battling a pretty nasty infection for the past couple of weeks, but seem to have turned a corner. Things are looking a lot better, and I'm excited to be here tonight.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. I'm glad you're on the mend. And you seem clearer than last time.
Yeah, I got a new computer, so I'm not doing this on my phone like I did the last couple of weeks. So I got a nice new computer, got my nice camera, but I do need to fix my ring light because the ring part snapped off the leg part. So. That and I need to shave. I haven't really shaved the last couple of weeks, so
it's expected. Philip, how's it going, my friend?
Good, Leo. How are you? It's good to be here again for another great episode on the Dorkening Network.
Yeah, thank you. And for people just joining in, you have your own network as well, Dark Discussions. What's going on over there?
Yes. Dark Discussions is a news network that has over 30 podcasts, including Dark Discussions podcast, which just celebrated its 10th anniversary, basically discussing horror films, science fiction films, genre films, art house films, and all sorts of stuff.
Very cool. Patsy, I hear we have an awesome guest. Would you like to introduce our guest tonight?
We do, and I'm going to use their own words to introduce our guest today. Our guest is a sentient jar of pudding sent from the outermost reaches of Glarbixia in order to invade the collective consciousness of the human race, flooding their senses with nonsensical language and horrific puns to make them ripe for conquest. First of all, there's no such thing as a horrific pun. I just want to throw that out there. But our guest this evening is a multi-talented gentleman, sound designer, editor, voice actor, Mr. Kennedy Phillips, and apparently he's also a hell of a boss.
As I sit sequestered in my denizen, I whisper to myself there's the potential of a ray of hope coming out, that this nightmare may finally be over. And I looked outside and whispered to myself, perhaps I'll get a haircut. As finally, I've actually been freed from this whole COVID situation. I got vaccinated and all of that stuff. I hope all of you are doing fantastic. Greetings, everybody, men, women, and that prismatic technicolor rainbow in between. I'm Kennedy Phillips. I bang pots together for a living.
I mean, there are worse things to do.
Yeah.
You'd think, yeah. But yeah, I for those of you who aren't familiar with my work, I'm one of the sound designers on Hell of a Boss. I was the lead sound designer for Has Been Hotel, which was in the same universe, and I am also the creator of the audio drama Magus Elgar, and the lead sound designer for The Sojourn, which is a sci-fi audio drama made by Space Doc, which you can find on YouTube.
Very cool. And we have a ton of links in the show notes, so we definitely urge you to head on down there or up above, depending on where you're watching or listening to us, to check out Kennedy. I have to say, and we've talked to a lot of voice actors, your voice is superb. I mean, I hearing you here and watching your reels, it's spot on. It's awesome.
Thank you. I've done a couple of voice projects in the past, most of which are not my own content, I promise. I was the Vampire King in the audio drama The Call of the Flame. I've done a couple of bit voices in various projects. I've also done one or two voices in my own show. And my vocal range can be all over the place for that, but mostly what I do is the banging the pots together thing, for the most part.
So how did you fall into that part of the business?
Well, it actually had started at a very young age. I had always wanted to be an entertainer of sorts, because when I lived on a sailboat with my parents, we would often have many legs where there would be no entertainment whatsoever. So my sister and I would do improv to humorous effect, mostly fake commercials of various quality. But I always wanted to get into film. And when I was like 12 or 13 years old, I had a camera and I would just shoot whatever short films I could make. Mostly centered around like my dog or whatever kid around the block was willing to get hit by a shopping cart. And I had made that my entire focus of I wanted to grow up to make things. Mostly I wanted to make cartoons, but I could not draw. So I focused on post-production, like editing, and found that I had a liking to it. And I went to college to study film. My undergrad program did not teach me enough about film, so then I went to a master's program over at Chapman University and discovered I was better at sound design than I was at editing.
Now,
I decided to just do that instead.
Now, when it comes to sound design, is often overlooked, but can be one of the most important aspects of any film. I mean, I don't think that, say, because it's coming up this week, the holiest of the Star Wars calendar is coming up this week. Where would this film be without the iconic lightsaber sound or the TIE fighter, or where would Godzilla be without his, iconic roar? These are things, like I said, that gets overlooked a lot. And a lot of times, folks who are doing sound design have to come up with stuff and kind of make it up out of whole cloth, for lack of a better term. I mean, look at the dinosaur effects from Jurassic Park. That's stuff that you have to kind of like, what would this sound like? Nobody knows because they haven't been around. Like, you don't have any analogs. So you have to kind of really, use your imagination, and there can be more creativity in sound design, I feel, than there could be in actually writing the film or creating a universe. What are your thoughts on that?
I would say that in terms of like writing and creative expression, when it comes to high concept sound design, the writing informs the sound design. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the process of making sound effects, most of these films that we get made are usually brought to us where there's only the dialogue. Even footsteps aren't even recorded when we get our hands on it. So it's up to us to construct that space in a way that informs you of these little like tactile texture details of the universe around you. Now, sometimes this can be just very literal, like just somebody walking across the room and just be some footsteps. Other times it could inform something about the character. When I'm working on Hell of a Boss, a lot of times I'm working on just footsteps. This may seem like a mundane little feature that you will never pay attention to, but think about some of your favorite characters in cartoons and how their footsteps are something that you listen to and immediately go, that's SpongeBob, that's Rocco from Rocco's Modern Life. Each of these sounds have a lot of thought put into them of what kind of quality do we want? What kind of character are we informing? For example, I was talking about with a couple of teammates at one point of this one character in Hell of a Boss, Verosika Mayday, who is this this crazy boss bitch succubus who hates our main character Blitzo, who's voiced by Brandon Rogers. And I for the life of me, I cannot remember Verosika's name for her voice actress. I just know that she plays, I think, Miraculous Ladybug in the show of the same name. But when she's walking around, the immediate thought that ran through my head is, dude, what if her high heels were like knives? So when she's walking around, you hear like this tink, tink, tink of like metal stabbing when she's moving around. So you like have a better idea of who it is that's moving around when she's on screen.
Literal stiletto heels.
Yeah. Most recently, we had a character named Stryker who was voiced by Norman Reedus playing in the episode, and he plays like this really badass looking imp cowboy type of guy who has a lot of like snake qualities to him. So like when he's moving with his footsteps, there's a lot of like rattlesnake quality to just his footsteps. Almost every high concept sound design production you've ever seen has had so much thought put into it. For example, you referenced Jurassic Park not too long ago. A lot of the sound designers had to go to like zoos and like to find really strange sounds to make those dinosaur noises. And my favorite one is, I think it was the raptor, where you hear that like screech squeal when it jumps after you. That is the sound of a Galapagos turtle bumping uglies once every 100 years.
Yep, I remember hearing about that. Yeah, like that's, and that is not a sound like when you put it to this, 8-foot tall killing machine, with the intelligence that the raptors have. That's absolutely like, it's like, wow, this is terrifying. But when you consider where it came from, it's like, that's kind of weird, but it works.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things about sound design is going out and doing research. A lot of times somebody will come and approach me and ask me things like, we want to get a sound that is akin to a screech, but it isn't a person. It sounds like a screech, but it's not. We want it to sound almost human, but not really. And the directions that I'll get will be baffling because a lot of the time the director is not very informed about like sound design stuff. They know what they want to feel, but they don't know what it is that they're looking for. So you really have to break down the base components of what it is that they want. I got to work on a horror film that gave me that exact direction, and my investigation led me to globetrot to the finest of antique shops and online Amazon suppliers. And I ended up finding myself one of these. For those of you that can't see the video, this is I'm holding what appears to be some kind of clay skull. This is a Aztec death whistle. It is a whistle that when you blow into it, it screams. It literally screams, but it screams in a way that doesn't sound very natural. And I love this thing. I don't know if you want me to play this thing because it gets very loud.
Oh, I'd take a shot.
Yeah.
All right, give me a second.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's just really a creepy sound. If you can like warp it around and play around with it, you could do all sorts of crazy things with it. I've also got like more mundane things that you can trick people into thinking are something else entirely. For example, I don't own a firearm. I don't own any type of gun in my house. However, what I can tell you is that there are very frequent opportunities for me to have guns being rattled around and stuff. Since I don't always have access to a Foley stage, I make do with what I have right here, which is a reappropriated doorknob, which if I just shake a little bit, kind of sounds a little bit like someone's handling a gun. Now, of course, it requires a little bit of finesse because this just sounds like I'm rattling a toy right now. But if I go... See, our ears aren't refined enough to be able to immediately tell about those kinds of things. 9 times out of 10, a lot of sound effects are just just audible optical illusions, if you will.
So, yeah, auditory hallucinations almost.
Yeah, I had a question about that. I think it's on, speaking of Patsy's brought up George Lucas films, another George Lucas film, Indiana Jones. I think on their discs there's a little doc that shows the sound designer person, and he showed how he made like sounds for head squashing would be like taking a cabbage and hitting it with a sledgehammer, or he took a romaine lettuce or bok choy and then twists it, and you get the crackling sounds that you would hear in some other sound effect. So it seems like it's so low tech, and yet it's brilliant. How did you figure this out? Did you see something like that, or did it just come to you one day?
A lot of times, I had learned my own brand of sound design before I got to learn the tricks of the trade. So like, I didn't know about carrots and celery and watermelons and the like until someone told me and saying, you need to have a fresh crisper of produce before you do sound design work, because if you need some good gore, nothing does it like celery. But I didn't have that, so I had to make do with a lot of other things. So what I would do is I would take pieces of like, I once tried using bamboo. I once had like, I once had a thing of Jello that I had made, and then just like would take a plate and just like crush it and like get all the kind of noises with it. So other times I just use my mouth because I can apparently make good enough noises with that. But when someone told me, you could just take a melon and just like sit, like just stomp on it or run over it with a car, I go, really? God, that seems so much easier than what I had to do. Because I tell you, the first time that I had to do gore sounds for my audio drum Magus Elgar, I didn't know what kind of sound would be best if I used Jello or pudding. So I bought both, got into this Foley stage and recorded sound effects for like 8 hours. And 8 hours in 80 to 90 degree temperature Foley stage with like a bunch of computers like humming and heating up the place. That room got rank. So I'll look at like certain kinds of pudding and I can't, because I just think of that day and just the smell it made.
We do have some trailers. Would you like to introduce Hell of a Boss? And I'll pose a question to you before we go into it.
I would love to. Hell of a Boss is a animated series made by Vivian Medrano, also known as Vivzy Pop, on YouTube, starring a group of imps who are working together to kill clients on the surface world for people that had gotten screwed over when they got sent to hell. The entire series takes place in hell, and it is not meant for children. It is also kind of a musical.
Awesome. And the question I'm going to pose for you to think of while we play this. So, Patsy, you said it earlier, sound design you can really make or break a film. And we've seen a lot of, movies where, the sound designer was like half in a bag or something like that. There's like the same bird chirping like every 5 seconds, or the footsteps don't match. As you watch movies, what are some of the common mistakes that you pick up on, or things that you would think you would do differently? And I'll let you think about that before while we get into the trailer.
Guys, do you feel that?
All right! Don't panic, Moxie! Elevator 666, departing for Lust.
Oh, Blitzy!
Shut the fuck up!
Damn it, Moxie, this is all your fault!
How is this my fault? Y'all ready to get fucked up and make some bitchin' bad choices? Motherfucker!
Okay, look, you are all making this into a way bigger deal than it needs to be. I don't pry into your stupid personal lives.
Does anybody love you?
Lizzo.
That is deeply upsetting.
It's been a great show so far. We've got about 5 episodes now. The 5th episode actually came out last week, and you might have picked up. Yes, it is starring. We have a guest star, Norman Reedus, as one of the characters for that episode.
That's crazy.
It's honestly phenomenal, the people that she's gotten her hands on. I'm still in disbelief for quite a few of them.
Well, we have information in the show notes. Definitely check out Hell of a Boss, and we'll look for the new episode coming out soon. So what do you think about sound design? What do you pick up on as you're watching movies?
The biggest mistake I have always heard is when a sound designer uses a stock sound for a monster. That is one of the biggest cardinal sins you'll always hear in a sound design production, and in sound designing a production. The biggest example that I can give you is from The Babadook. Now, The Babadook is a phenomenal film and one of the scariest ones I've ever seen. But there is just one moment in that entire film that just pulls me completely out of it. And it is so frustrating because everything else about it is phenomenal. The Babadook is this entity that is like stalking the main character based off of a mythological creature from a children's book. And the whole time, this thing is creeping in the background. You never get a good look of it. You never hear anything besides just its voice, where it kind of gargles in the back of its throat, this Babadook. And it's so well done. And then you finally see the silhouette of this thing. And you're feeling your heart drop into your stomach. And then a pterodactyl screeches. And you're like, that's just a pterodactyl. Because they use this generic roar sound that you hear in every single movie or television show or cartoon that you can think of. And because I've heard that sound so many times, it immediately pulls me out of the experience. If you're going to be making something that is going to have that kind of an arresting appearance, wouldn't it be prudent to make a sound that would reflect that? Now, inversely, a great example of that being worked to its of someone designing a creature that leaves behind an impact. Did any of you guys see a movie called Annihilation?
Yes.
Oh, sure. Best film ever.
Okay.
Best film ever.
For those of you who haven't seen Annihilation, it is a film about a bunch of quirky soldiers walking into a soap bubble and having all of reality rip themselves apart. That is a barbarous oversimplification, but the less I tell you about this movie, the better.
Mm-hmm.
There's a moment in this movie where they run into a bear. And
best scene ever, too.
The bear had freshly killed one of the characters, and its roar had been deconstructed and recombinated with the sound of one of the actress's voices, so that when the bear is roaring, it actually sounds like this woman crying for help. And every time this thing is moving around and growling, you're hearing two vocal cords wrestling against one another, grinding in this uncertain esophagus of sorts. And it sends chills through my chest and spine and various organs. And I highly recommend that if you want like a good example of monster sound design that completes the picture, please give Annihilation a shot.
Yeah, that scene, that was something I was going to ask about. Like, you know, what was something that you found to be, you know, like just the pinnacle of sound design, creature design. Now, certain things like I brought up earlier about, you know, Star Wars and Godzilla. Now, when you are given a script and you're like, okay, this is the sound that we're looking for, do they ever try to kind of like describe the sound? Like, you know, if I'm looking at I'm reading a novelization of, you know, a Star Wars book, they describe the lightsaber sound as a snap hiss, which I would not. If I'm listening to a lightsaber, snap hiss is not what I'm looking at. Do you ever get stuff like that and you have to kind of interpret it?
A big problem about my job is onomatopoeia is not a universal language. What you would describe as a lightsaber, I would describe as something differently. Now, that has nothing to do with the fact that I spent the last decade creating sound effects. It is simply just we interpret things differently. For example, if someone told you to describe an apple, you would probably come up with something very different than what someone else might have. You might say it is a red fruit that was freshly detached from a tree and tastes rather sweet, whereas another person would describe it as a red spheroid that breaks open into a very fleshy material inside. It really depends on the person. Of course, I just had somebody describe an apple like a sociopath would. So the idea is that you have to kind of interpret what would be best. Now, oftentimes when I get a production to do sound design for, I don't get a script. I don't even get to see the dailies. I just get the film completed. And they usually tell me, all right, what do you got? And those kind of films can be a little frustrating because you can definitely tell that sound was not something they were thinking about until the moment they walked in the door and found out, oh, somebody is being paid to do this for a living. It's kind of like you suddenly own a house and you walk in and someone says, all right, what do you want to paint the walls? And you're like, that's an option? I mean, the eggshell seems to work fine. Right?
I can do whatever.
Meanwhile, the interior decorator on the other side of the room is like having an aneurysm, being like, "That's fine."
Oh, we got a boom mic. We'll record as we go.
Now, do you?
We'll do it in post.
Yeah. When it comes to something like animation, do you get to see the character design first, so you can kind of, give
Sometimes.
that character life through the unique sound effects that you'll provide?
Sometimes. Sometimes I'll get them, sometimes I won't. I actually got a couple of the character design previews from Vivzy when we were talking about Hell of a Boss. Like I got to see Fizzarali during a stream once, and we talked it out about ideas. Because I did the vocal design for Fizzarali, who's this robotic clown. That's kind of like a malfunctioning animatronic from Five Nights at Freddy's, Chuck E. Cheese's kind of thing.
Willy's Wonderland.
Who's incidentally voiced by the guy who plays Beetlejuice in the Broadway show.
Nice.
Because that's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But other times I'll get them after the fact and just kind of have to think of it as I go. That's one of the reasons why I love working on audio dramas so much, because what I'll get is the dialogue and the script, and they go, do as you will. The entire world, all of the ambience, all of the soundscape, everything that makes that universe real is at my fingertips. There is no real rigid direction that I have to go, other than the fact that, okay, here's what the location should be. Please make that, and not go off and make Floopy the Unicorn's Rainbow Time Adventure drug dealing den.
I get it.
Because first of all, this is a science fiction. We don't have unicorns.
Well, not with that attitude.
There are sometimes I'll have conversations of being like, hot take, what if there was?
Yeah. I mean, it's science fiction. I mean, you can pretty much do whatever you want. I mean, I know though that, unicorns and whatnot are more fantasy elements, but with science fiction, oh yeah, I crossbred, this DNA with that DNA, and look, I made myself a Pegasus, like, do what you want. But I totally get what you're saying. Like, if you're coming up with a specific ambiance for, something that takes place in hell, you don't want it to sound like, Bambi romping through the meadow. You want it to sound, you want, tortured screams in the background. You want, rivers of molten rock. You want, chains and, if you're going with like, the generic stuff, you want, the sound design is going to really help set the mood, even without, because you'll have your visuals, but you got to have the sound effects as well.
Yeah, I actually, funny enough, I had created the ambiences for the most recent episode of Hell of a Boss. I actually had isolated it. Give me a second. Let me give that to you real quick. I actually had isolated the ambience for the location that they had went to in episode 5 called the Wrath Ring. You could play like a little segment of it if you want to, where the atmosphere does dictate a lot of the feel of this place. And this is audio that you'll very rarely hear all of. But it's present, and it is something that you do benefit from. There's ambience in almost every production you've ever heard, but you don't think about it unless there's nothing else going on. I don't know if you want to play that little thing that I just gave you a link to.
Yeah, I'm playing it right now. You should hear it.
I can't quite hear it. You might need to run it through the stream.
Let's see. Patsy, are you hearing it?
I'm hearing it.
Okay.
I barely hear it. It's not for myself, but
Yeah, there's definitely like there's a couple of like repeating patterns that
There's sounds that you would expect, like cicadas, like
yeah,
creatures off in the back. One particular detail that I loved in the Wrath Ring that I didn't get to, that we only get to see for like a few seconds, like not even a few seconds, like 2 seconds, are these volcano plateaus that have these like massive orbs of lava just hanging there. And like I wanted to introduce like that element within the zone as well. Every bit of sound design that you usually do, you have to ask yourself, what do we want to convey? What story is being told through this? What is enriching our atmosphere and what's pulling away from it? Like what do we need to do to make sure that everything is a cohesive experience?
yeah, and again, you know, the visuals are one thing, but without like the sound design, without the ambience like you're talking about in the background, like that can really change the mood. Like you can have, you know, whatever visuals you want, but if you're really trying to like come across with, you know, like a, you know, like something scary is going on, or like something, you know, again, think like Annihilation, where you have these beautiful visuals, like the cinematography is amazing. There's all these, you know, really interesting colors and like flowers and things that look really cool, but there's these weird sounds in the background.
They even go a step further. There's a lot of moments in Annihilation where there's just an absence of sound. And you might think that like, oh, well, the absence really like kind of pulls me out of it, because, well, then it's like, well, where's the stuff? What's going on? There's a lot of movies where they don't put enough ambience in there and you can feel it. You're like, this feels fake, but I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Annihilation, they use that to a benefit, where there's so much sound, a thought put into the sound design. You walk into this big soap bubble, and then suddenly all of the sound drops out. Where there's no birds, there's no bees, there's no bugs, there's not really much wind. And you go, what is wrong with this place? You're not thinking what's wrong with the movie. You're thinking what's wrong with this location.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling of uncertainty is really good. It's kind of like that feeling when, like right before an earthquake, or when you hit the eye of a storm in a hurricane, which I've had the pleasure of experiencing both. There's a sudden drop, which is everything gets really quiet. And you're suddenly paying very close attention to like the air conditioner or the wiring in the walls. Sounds that you don't normally pay attention to. Sometimes what a mixer will do to help accentuate that silence is bring that stuff up. Draw your attention to it. Of like, okay, wow, it really got quiet in here all of a sudden.
There's been a couple movies like that, and I can think for one that you have the yin yang of Infinity War and Endgame. You know, at the end of Infinity War, I remember at the theater, and then it just goes to silence, and I was like,
there's no music, no fanfare. It's just nothing needs to be done.
Exactly, and it was surreal in the theater because even the audience was silent. We were all stunned, and it was just the absence of sound was just crazy. And then the reverse, when Hulk does a snap, and you start hearing more
Thanos?
In Endgame, when they're bringing everybody back. Yeah. Hulk does a snap, and they're wondering if it worked or not, but you hear more birds.
Yeah, you start hearing birds and stuff. Yep. I was also thinking Alien Covenant, the most recent one, where they're starting to explore the planet, and you don't really notice it, but it's like, you know, because people are talking, and it's like there's no birds, there's no like rodents running through the wheat, like there's no sound, like there's like you said, Kennedy, there's barely any wind. Like, what's wrong with this place? Why is this so off?
A great example of this being used to its logical extreme was from, and I can't believe I reference this all the time when I talk about this kind of stuff, Paranormal Activity 1.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you were there when the Paranormal Activity craze happened. Where this plucky little movie that had a budget of like $400,000 ended up making all of the money because it was just like two people in a house, and that was the whole film. But this film is a masterclass in sound design because it takes your expectation of that silence and twists it just enough to make it something completely new. Every night in this movie, this entity starts coming around and starts messing around with the scenery. And I remember I strongly recommend, if you ever try to see this movie, you need to see it with like a really good sound system, or see it in a movie theater if you can, because it is like watching it on your phone or watching it on television. It's just not good. It's barely watchable in my opinion because of this. And that's you watch this just this home security footage of their house, and nothing's happening. And suddenly you get this primal danger message in your head that says you need to leave. You don't hear anything, you don't see anything going on, but you feel it in your bones, and you don't know why. It is something of like suddenly danger, and it is that very primitive sensation that's being triggered, but you're not sure why or how. And the reason why is I actually had to grab the audio from this movie and figure out how they were doing this. And in the 5:1 mix, nothing on the center channel, nothing on the left or the right, nothing on the surrounds. But then I go down to the LFE, the low frequency emission, the subwoofer, the one that gives the vibrations, and it's going crazy. They had no other noise going on other than them physically vibrating the air to the point that your bones felt it. And then the door opens a little bit. And if you were watching it on TV on your phone, you're like, all right. But if you're sitting there like feeling like 30 seconds of this and then the door opens, you're just like breath of life into my lungs finally. Payoff.
I was going to bring they did a similar thing leading up to, I think it was an Irreversible, leading up to the particularly brutal scene that happens towards the beginning of the film. They have this super low frequency that they play where like there's music and stuff going on, but there's also this super low frequency like you were talking about that like you're not aware, but your body is aware that it's putting you in a state of unease because your body is able to register it, but you can't hear it. You know, you can't feel. It's the same thing, and I think more films should try and do that as opposed to relying on jump scares.
See, it really comes down to like the level of payoff. Like I understand the value of jump scares. Like heck, a really well done jump scare I can appreciate. But a lot of jump scares have the absence of buildup. There's no tension that leads up to that experience. You need something to give you that payoff. And sometimes just not even having the payoff is plenty enough. A long time ago, there was a gentleman by the name of Ben Croshaw, who goes by Yahtzee, who runs a series called Zero Punctuation. He does reviews for video games, and he was talking about the benefits of scares and the difference between them. And he described them as such, where he says, there are 3 types of scares. There is a monster on the other side of the room wearing a scary mask and goes a bloogie woogie woo. That would be that would be like your Resident Evil, where it's just there's a monster in the room, it's scary, everybody scares, whoosh. Then there's the second type where the monster isn't in front of you, he's standing behind you, you don't know what he looks like, you're not sure when he's going to go a bloogie woogie woo, and you're sitting there imagining the absolute worst possible thing that can happen, and the fact that he never actually does it drives you up a wall. That would be your Silent Hill. And then there's the third kind where the monster goes a bloogie woogie woo on the other side of a brightly lit room and then screeches horribly on a violin as he slowly walks towards you. That would be your Dead Space.
It's very accurate.
But yeah, like so much of horror really lends to like really good sound design. I've always wanted to work on a lot of horror films. I so rarely get the opportunity to. I've gotten to work on like 2 in my lifetime.
Well, we if anybody is watching this that does movies, we actually work with a lot of film creators. You know, your information is in the show notes, and you know, it's yeah. So I don't know where I was going. My mind totally went blank. But I do know we do have 2 trailers we need to run. That was it. Magus Elgar, would you like to introduce Magus Elgar?
Magus Elgar is my personal favorite, but that's mostly due to the fact that this was the project that got me on the map as a sound designer, as a filmmaker, as a creative. Magus Elgar, the reason why Magus Elgar is such an important thing to me is because it's mine. I am the director and the creator of Magus Elgar, which is a fantasy comedy about 2 magical casters who travel around the magical world of Hearth alongside 2 scientists to fix magical anomalies they've accidentally caused. It's a fantasy comedy inspired by the works of Terry Pratchett and has a lot of sound design and a lot of terrible puns, and it is an absolute delight, and I highly recommend you give it a shot. If you will, play this silly little trailer. I would greatly appreciate it.
Will do. We love terrible puns. Here we go.
In the magical world of Hearth, there are wizards, there are sorcerers, and there are magi. And none of them know what they're doing.
That's how the best spells are discovered. Throw it at the wall and read the tea leaves. Or scorch marks.
Witness the wonders of magic, science, and property damage in a radio drama of phantasmical proportions.
Face my mastery over the elements!
Magus Elgar. Now available for download wherever audiobooks are sold. Listen to the first 3 episodes for free on YouTube.
And we have the link in the show notes up above or down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. And if you're working on a movie right now and you'd like to hire Kennedy, we do have all his information there as well. And, you know, just watching his reels, just amazing, amazing work. And just to make sure we get it all in, we also have the Sojourn audio drama. Would you like to introduce
Which is what I'm currently working on right now. The Sojourn is a sci-fi audio drama akin to the style of The Expanse or Battlestar Galactica, created by Daniel Orrit, who is known as Space Doc on YouTube. This guy goes into excruciating detail about how ships work in sci-fi, how space battles are planned, and even just the technical aspects of every ship. He has these wonderful breakdowns on YouTube, and all of these lessons that he's learned about sci-fi, he is now translating into a sci-fi experience where the Guinevere travels with a space convoy to the Tantalus cluster in hopes to find new supplies and resources for their starving population. But they end up finding something a little bit more than they had bargained for in the unknown reaches of the galaxy.
There we go.
I'm not coming on this expedition as a soldier. I'm happiest when it's just me and my crew. I've worked for a long time to put that part of my life behind me.
Come on, Cass. Look at where we are. We're off the edge of the map here. This really is the unknown.
This is Captain Cassandra Farron of the privateer corvette Guinevere. You can't outrun us, and you've got nowhere to go.
We fought the Union for 10 years.
You know who these people are. The moment they're sure they have the upper hand, they'll turn on us.
Welcome aboard this midday service to God only knows where. Please keep all hands and feet inside the spacecraft at all times.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited.
They see us. Incoming fire.
Glancing hit, Skip. Superficial damage.
Get the connection back. All hands brace for impact.
Why is it that the one thing stopping us from reaching the future is always the past?
The Sojourn, Season 1, Volume 1, coming August 1st, 2020.
Very cool.
Book 1 is now available on Audible, Google Play, and wherever audiobooks are sold. If you get book 1, you'll be getting the first 3 episodes, and we're working on releasing episodes as we make them. Book 2 should be scheduled to come out sometime this summer. I would know because I am most of the sound team.
Nice. I know we are running on a little bit of time, and Phil has a hard out at 9. I just want to make sure I get this question in here. You say you worked for Ubisoft. What did you do for them?
Yes, I worked with Melodygun on the on Ubisoft's VR experience for Assassin's Creed. Around when the movie was coming out, we had they had a virtual reality experience that we got to play around with and sound design in a VR space, which we realized was a completely different experience because it's not just one person sitting in one location. It's a kind of a tracking experience as you go around, and the microphones of where you're supposed to be able to hear things is changing constantly.
Oh, wow.
It was a really exciting experience to work on.
Sounds cool, but also sounds very difficult.
It sounds like a fun challenge, though.
Yeah, I like out of the VR projects that I've gotten to work on, my favorite one was one I got to work on for Skybound Entertainment, which you might know of them as the guys who made The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
They had an experience called Delusion Lies Within, which was a VR horror experience where 2 people go into this house that changes reality based on chapters in this like horror book. One instance, they're in like this crazy like fireplace monster pit. Another one, there's like this crazy doctor who's experimenting with chemicals, and then there's this terrifying giant puppeteer that's turning everyone into marionettes. And getting the sound design this in a VR experience was a lot of fun. I think you could probably grab it if you've got like an HTC Vive or like just any kind of Oculus or VR headset. It should be somewhere. It's called Delusion Lies Within. I think that's available on Steam.
Oh.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That is...
Well, I'm sorry. What's that, Phil?
No, I was saying that is really cool.
Yeah. So we are out of time here, so we're going to wrap things up, and we'll start with Kennedy. Where do you like people interacting with you on social media?
Well, for the most part, I am on Facebook, but I'm not very active on there. The place that I am most active is as Magus Serling on Twitter. You'll be able to see little bits and pieces of things that I'm working on, musings about sound design, and of course anything else that I'm working on that I might be announcing at some point or another. If you are a budding voice actor, I'm sometimes creating content where I'm pulling auditions, or I have lots of people that are into animation that are always looking for people. If you like animation, I know lots of other animation people that are looking for other animation projects, or if you just need sound design on your cartoon or whatever, I am constantly, insatiably seeking compensation for my talents. So feel free to hit me up. I would love to sound design your thing, and let's make a movies together.
Awesome. We got all your information in the show notes, and if you're looking for voice actors, I know Patsy is a budding voice actor who's working on a show right now.
Yeah, I am the voice of Will Mouse the Darkling. He is I also puppeteer him as well.
Oh.
Yeah, he's a little brown fuzzy guy with sharp teeth, and he enjoys blood, and he may or may not be able to breathe fire. We're not 100% sure on that, but he lives with his mom in Demonshire, Massachusetts, in the year 1979.
Well, at some point, I'd love to talk with you. I can't tell too much about something that I'm working on right now, but I have something that I think you might like.
I would. I just followed you on Twitter, so we can have a conversation.
Cool beans. Philip, where do you like people interacting with you?
Well, they can go to darkdiscussions.com, which is the all news network that's updated daily multiple times, so people can go there, and they can find me on Facebook and also the Dark Discussions Podcast Facebook group.
Awesome. And I know you got to bail, so I'll let you bail. Patsy, what about you, sir?
You can find me every Thursday on the Throwdown Thursday podcast with my wife Ashes, and you can find us. We had a little bit of a hiatus while I was dealing with my my infection for the sports show, but we are back. We just dropped an episode yesterday. We'll drop another episode this week. You can also find me occasionally on Shark Bites. You can find me on here every Monday, and probably the best place to reach out and find us is that would be our Facebook groups. Throwdown Thursday podcast. You can also find me on major sports drops doing various sports memorabilia. As you can see, my personal collection in the background. We also do some awesome stuff helping veterans as well. So we've got that going for us. And the Louder Sports Show is an official sponsor of the Team Wilms Bros Pan Mass Challenge bike team. I don't know what specifically they're called, but we are an official sponsor because we were able to get them some a significant chunk of change, and all that goes to fighting pediatric cancer, because fuck pediatric cancer.
Awesome. And for me, just Google Leo Pond. You find a bunch of stuff. Could be true, could be not, but more importantly, follow these awesome people. Go check out Kennedy Phillips. He does some awesome stuff. All the links are in the show notes. And for me, I run a little thing called the Dorkening Podcast Network. Over 30 shows on the network. A lot of awesome stuff going on. Tomorrow, we're doing a very special May 4th episode of Splash Pages, the comic book club. And then Wednesday, still token with, we have a amazing guest. It's you may know him as Chuck's boss from the show Chuck, and Marcus. I can't remember his name right now, but I know we need to go. And and we're also doing a special Star Wars episode on the Dorkening on Wednesday. Thank you all for joining. We'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Take care, everybody.